The Dying Light Christmas events have always been fun, but this year Techland pulled out all the stops and threw everything at it to bring us their biggest winter event so far. And judging by how the community goal and the overkill target were totally smashed, I think it's safe to say that it was definitely one of the most popular ones. But I couldn't just declare it a win without first comparing all of the bounties, monsters, weapons and rewards to those in the original winter events, just to see if this really was the best Dying Light Christmas ever. And I've broken the whole video down into chapters in the description below if you prefer to skip to any particular subject right now. So I think we've got to start with the craziest change this year, and that's that they actually added snow to Villedor. Literally everywhere you turned during the event, there was a lovely coating of powdery snow on everything as far as the eye could see, right from the little loot packs that the biters leave, all the way to the distant mountains on the horizon. The community had been asking for this one all year, and unbelievably, they managed to deliver it. It transformed the entire map, and I saw plenty of people asking if we could keep it after the event, not only because it looked beautiful, but because it changed the whole mood and atmosphere of the city. Sadly though, I'm pretty sure that they'll only bring it back for winter every year, as otherwise it just wouldn't feel special anymore. And yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that, to be honest. And of course, the original Dying Light event never had snow in the first place, so it's definitely a win for Dying Light 2 in the overall festive feel department. And that can also be said for the impressive decorations too, although I'm pretty sure it shouldn't have been snowing inside the bazaar or in the VNC elevator. Apart from the changing tower banner and some Christmas graffiti, the original Dying Light never had any decorations in the game itself, which was a real shame, especially as they often showcased how it could have looked in their event trailers. They did add decorations for their last Halloween event, so they really could have put that Christmas tree and Gazi's pizza stall outside the tower, I reckon, but sadly it never happened. You could argue that the Dying Light 2 decorations are just copy and pasted in all three main locations, but it works pretty well in my opinion in terms of making it all feel festive. There's even a big tree on a rooftop outside the bazaar that you can actually decorate this year, but of course it wasn't as simple as it sounds, and I'll talk about that later in the video. Now, I don't know about you, but I always like to dress up for the occasion, and the Santa's helper outfit was the most Christmassy in the DL1 events, in my opinion. It did look a bit like a cheap fancy dress costume though, but hey, I liked it. The other DL1 Christmas outfits were all very smart, but they were more like something you'd see at an office Christmas party, and this one was literally called that. Of course, there are not many Dying Light 2 Christmas outfits yet, but the ones we have all seem to have this traditional look to them rather than Crane's more tacky approach to Christmas. Last year we got the Nutcracker bundle, and this year they launched the Grim Santa bundle, and you could also collect gear parts in this event to make the Mischievous Helper outfit, and unlock the skin for it too. In my opinion, the Mischievous Helper looks much better without that rubber mask though. It is after all just reused from the Die and Laugh outfit. And I think Aiden looks quite dapper in it without the mask, apart from the human ears hanging off of his chest. I mean, what's that all about? Personally, I didn't buy the Grim Santa bundle this year, as it's a fair bet that we'll be able to get the outfit and the weapons from future events, or from the Pilgrim's Outpost at some point. So I just went with the free option this year, which to be fair, I think looks really good. I love all the attention to detail and all the little dials and shimmering snowflake effects on the braces, and it all lights up in the dark too, so yeah, I personally think this one is pretty decent. Backer's Christmas store was back again, looking and sounding great, and I love that he turned and croaked ho 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 to you with his festive tunes playing in the background. And there was a new addition to the stall in the form of a letterbox to Santa this year, which added a whole new dimension to the bounties, which I'll get to in a minute. Backer, as you'll know, is now how we activate bounties during events, and he doubles as a vendor to spend your looted sweets on. And there you can buy anything from masks to weapons and rare resources like military medkits and trophies. And yeah, I must admit I was initially resistant to the whole vendor thing. Last year I didn't even get involved in this event because they were running the original one, so of course I was going to do that instead. I'd just been so used to the way it was done in the original game, where they had fixed event bounties in the quest menu, and you didn't need to set up an account on Techland's website, the Pilgrim's Outpost, to claim certain rewards. I have to say though that I've now come around to the Dying Light 2 method, as there's really no comparison when it comes to the variety of quests and rewards on offer here. One thing that should be addressed though is that the bounties from previous events do seem to remain active in your quest list even after the event ends, and at first I couldn't understand why I couldn't activate these new ones until it was pointed out to me. It's easy enough to untrack them of course, but I still think that they should automatically clear when the event ends, to be honest. The bounties in Dying Light 2 are still similar to the original in that they're mostly a case of kill X amount of zombies and loot for X amount of resources. But this year it's not just the festive biters you need to worry about, as they finally brought back the mini viral elves. They look more like mini biters that just behave like mini virals, but it was always really fun seeing them swarming all over the place every year. They actually started off as full-size biters in the early Christmas events, but for some reason Techland chose to shrink them down later on and turn them into crazy little elves, and I loved them for it. Sadly though, that did leave the regular biters looking pretty much the same as they always do, and I have to wonder why they couldn't have at least put some Santa hats on them, the way they did with witches' hats for the Halloween events. Dying Light 2 has definitely outdone the original again here, as the assortment of festive biters now are pretty decent. Okay, so there are only a few variations of biter type and outfit, but it's still so much more than we saw last year, and more than we ever saw in the original. The bolter made a comeback too, but although this one looks very cool and kind of reminds me of the Grinch, he's actually much easier to catch than the original blue bolter was. I mean, that guy was a real slippery character, and he could be a challenge to keep up with, never mind actually get close to and catch, whereas the new one just stops and pauses all the time, giving you plenty of opportunities to get him. And if you use the grappling hook or throw a weapon at him, you don't even have to get close enough to even set him off running in the first place. He does give you the best winter boon effect though, as it's like a low gravity jump. It means you can go higher and further in slow motion as if you're walking on the moon, and I love that personally. I do wish they'd have found a way to bring back the active snowflake effect on his skin too, as details like that made the original bolter more fun than the new one as far as I'm concerned. Also, I want to remind everyone about that iced volatile variant we saw in the 2021 Christmas event. Those things were really cool, and I had hoped that we'd see something similar brought back in Dying Light 2. But I guess that considering how much stuff they'd already crammed into this event, alongside a pretty big update packed with new content, I guess it was too much to expect this year. They did bring back the Mr Snow Demolisher variant though, and they came up with a much better way for them to spawn than just randomly this time, and that's where the letterbox on Bacca's stand came into play. Every time you ranked up with Bacca this year, you received a letter to Santa, and when you posted it, Santa's own personal C-130 would fly over and deliver an airdrop somewhere on the map. It was a great callback to the airdrops from the original game, and I'm all for a bit of nostalgia if it's used in the right way. Instead of red smoke now though, the spot where it landed was marked by a big sparkling Christmas tree in the sky above it, and all you had to do was get there without being killed in the process, as that made the drop disappear, which I found out on more than a few occasions. Once you got there though, you'd find Mr Snow surrounded by a random assortment of enemies, which would depend on where the drop landed. But most were fairly straightforward to defeat, to be honest. If, however, the drop landed right next to one of the new screaming goons, then there was a massive difficulty spike, and you could find yourself being attacked from all angles by constantly spawning Banshees until you killed the goon, and all the while Mr Snow and God knows what else was throwing boulders and attacking you all at the same time. It was nothing short of chaos unless you hung back and maybe tried to pick them all off from a distance with a ranged weapon, as otherwise you were in real danger of not surviving this encounter and losing the airdrop. Of course, the original Dying Light never had Christmas Demolishers either, so yet another win, it seems, for DL2. So, what about the winter rewards then? Well, one of the first things you unlock from Bacca is the Snowball Throwable, which is another great return from the original game. There are a few bounties that actually require freezing enemies, so I was pretty much looking forward to trying them out. Unfortunately though, this so-called freezing effect just seemed to make a small puff of vapour around the biters, and instead of visibly icing up, they only appear to react to the effect by clutching their chests and looking up at the sky as if they were just a little bit chilly. The original freeze effect was so much better in my opinion, as you could actually see a layer of crystallised ice all over them, and if you hit them they would break into a new position every time until it finally shattered. It also worked on volatiles too in the original game, and this new one has no visible effect on them whatsoever. So I don't know if it's bugged or just not very well done this time around, but it's definitely not great. If you punch the biters with this new effect, they just die immediately, so it doesn't have anywhere near the same level of fun as the original one did. And the same is true for the great looking but pretty underwhelming Dead of Winter bow that you got for the personal bounty. You'd get that same vapour cloud effect, but it just one-shots them before they even freeze. Now I know this could be down to my character level in the game. At Legend 60 this was the result I got, and it was underwhelming to say the least, as I may as well have just used a regular bow if it was just going to one-shot him every time. I remember getting the Frosthander sword a couple of years back, and that thing turned everything into ice statues, even the bandits. And you could still do takedowns on them while they were frozen too, which was really fun. I might have liked the new freeze effect a bit more if it froze any surrounding biters too, like the Snow Ops gun did. But it doesn't even work on single biters unless you get a direct hit every time. The Skull Axe was supposed to give a chance of freezing too, but that also suffered the same results in that department. However, it was fantastic for breaking all of Mr. Snow's attack animations, as this weapon actually comes back to you after throwing it, so if you timed it right, you could stop Mr. Snow from performing any of his attacks. The only other time we've seen a weapon come back in Dying Light is when you were wearing the Van Crane outfit, and even then it would only travel a short distance and seem to come back on a rope. This new one, however, can travel a fair distance before returning, and it seems to just magnetise back into your hand Thor style, which is pretty cool. Damage wise, yeah, it's not the most powerful even in its legendary form, but it is still 100% worth having in my opinion. And it reminded me a bit of the way the old heavy tribal axe looked in the dark too. But that one didn't work with the Van Crane outfit though. So what about the rewards for completing the event then? Well, after ranking up enough to unlock the decoration packs with Baka and finding 21 tree toppers from the airdrops, you can finally decorate that Christmas tree on the roof. And once that was done, you could pick up the Mischievous Helper skin and also find a Bomka grenade near the top of it. You just needed to grapple up there and try and grab it, and once you had it, you got a pretty powerful cluster munition on your hands. It doesn't make a very impressive explosion to look at, sadly, but it does take out quite a few enemies at once with comedic effect, and it came in pretty handy for clearing airdrops, to be honest. The global goal reward was a bit meh though, to be honest, as it was just a zombie gingerbread charm that added absolutely nothing in terms of buffs. But I do have a little bit of bias towards it though, as Techland actually had some of these made in real life. And I was lucky enough to receive one of them as a Christmas gift. That was a lovely surprise, and thanks again Techland for that. As I said at the start of the video, the global goal was absolutely smashed, and that triggered the overkill target for 50 pilgrim tokens, and that was also smashed, so clearly a massive win in terms of player numbers returning for this event. And all in all, the total number of unlockable items available to buy from Baka and the weapons, outfit and gear items awarded far outweigh anything ever given in the original event, so the charm isn't too much of a disappointment really. So, was this the best Dying Light Christmas ever? Well, despite some shortcomings, it was without a doubt a very good event. Of course, there were a few disappointments like the poor freeze effect and the janky bolter, but on the whole, this really does have to be the best Christmas event for Dying Light 2, and as a result, has finally overshadowed the original Dying Light as something. Of course, the OG will always be better in many ways, and I just can't see Techland being able to undo many of their bad choices with the main game now, but for someone like me who just dips in for special occasions now and then, this event was definitely a good reason to come back. So what do you think? Was this the best Dying Light Christmas event ever? Or will the original Dying Light events always be the winner in your eyes? Let me know in the comments as always, and if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.